I am so excited to be talking about The Witcher again. I've taken some time away to collate my thoughts, and I wanted to provide a review for the series. Now, some context on where I'm coming from: I've not read any of the books. I've only played the first two games. The third I played for all of 5-10 minutes. So aside from knowing the characters' names and their occupations, some of the locations, I'm not really intimately familiar with the lore and backstory of any of the places or events. I think this is important, as I have to imagine the vast majority of people watching or interested in watching the series are in a similar boat with maybe even less knowledge. And also, just to clarify, I have no comparison. The comments were letting me know how certain events transpired in the books, for better or worse, but I have no context for that, and I'm trying to judge the show based purely on my thoughts on just the show. Now, like I said at the start of the video, I'm so excited to be talking about The Witcher again, as I think the series is just so good. Aside from one filler episode and a questionable plot line with the character, I really enjoyed almost everything the show provided, from character and dialogue to locations and cinematography to the music and the audio design. What makes or breaks any show is the characters and the dialogue foremost. And it's so apparent the love and care that the protagonist Geralt, played by Henry Cavill, shows to the character. There's countless videos and interviews of Henry talking about how much he loves the games and the world of The Witcher, and it's readily apparent how well that translated to his portrayal of Geralt. It's hard to step out of the shadow of someone who so successfully portrayed a character before you and really make it your own, and keep fans who came to love the material based on the original performance happy. But the mannerisms and demeanor of Henry Cavill's Geralt perfectly captures the essence of what made Doug Cockle's version so iconic and interesting, whilst allowing him plenty of freedom to add his own interpretation to the character. Naturally, the show leans less on the other characters, but they all provide excellent performances. From child actor Ciri portraying loss, fear, anger, and her journey to find Geralt. Yennefer's entire arc, from her weak, fragile form at the beginning to when we see her literally melting an entire army with her magic. The actor is able to expertly relay how bleak her life was originally, to the arrogance that comes from her first getting a taste of power, to the deep sadness she tries to subdue in her inability to become a mother. Jaskier as well, him playing off a Geralt's straight man, leads to hilarious situations and lines, and he also lays down an absolute banger of a song. But this goofy sidekick has a personality. You feel for him. When Geralt took his rage and anger and frustration out on Jaskier, I was tearing up. It's extremely sad. And being able to grow attached to characters enough to feel that type of emotion speaks volumes on how well these people did and how well the writing was. Now, I guess I gotta interject here. I didn't have this in the script originally, but I've seen this come up for others, so I'll just address it for completionist's sake. That is the show changing characters from the games. It's also my understanding that the game has already changed stuff from the books, but I digress. For example, Triss in the game was white with bright red hair versus her counterpart in the show. This just wasn't an issue for me at all. Again, I didn't even have this in my script. I didn't even think about it whilst watching the show. I didn't feel any pandering, any forced diversity, really anything like that at all. There are strong male characters, there are strong female characters, and both sides suffer through very traumatic pasts and hardships to get where they ended up. There's a lot of terrible mothers in the world of The Witcher. No one starts out level 99 killing Omega weapons with limit breaks right from the start. Everyone is a level 1 drawing magic spells outside Balam Garden. And their journeys to their respective climaxes all felt earned and believable. To touch on dialogue a little more, there's a common complaint I found in that the show's timeline is confusing and doesn't do a good job of explaining itself. Hopefully, without coming across as pretentious or arrogant, I'm confused why they're confused. In the first episode, Ciri says to Calanthe, "You were my age when you wanted Hotchbuzz," something like that. Then some 20 minutes later, Renfri to Geralt, Queen Calanthe just won her first battle at Hotchbuzz. This to me explained the timelines between Geralt and Ciri and also sets the precedent for the viewer that timelines should not be taken as necessarily sequential. But it is by far the most common complaint I've seen, so I do want to address it. The show doesn't have title cards or establishing shots with text that says like Temeria 1436, Brokilon Forest 1789. You know, the location and then date in the bottom left corner of the screen. I don't know the years, don't correct me. Instead, these little snippets of dialogue carry the weight of informing the viewer of where they are currently, either directly or through subtext. Now, this means this show is not good to put on in the background, like how maybe you'll watch The Office and clean dishes, not really focusing entirely on the show. A sentence is usually all the show provides, from Yennefer and Istrid's relationship making a little more sense once you figure out that she's been in training over 3 months, to Jaskier reuniting with Geralt and him saying something along the lines of, how long's it been, a decade? To Yennefer mocking Jaskier when they meet again in the dragon episode, saying, oh, those crow's feet are new. That's all you get. You can extrapolate a lot from that one sentence, and that allows the characters to not be overly simplistic and explanatory in the dialogue. In my opinion, this is a good thing, and I appreciate the show for trying this style. Not forcing the characters to relay information they already know, but the viewer doesn't, lets the conversations carry more natural weight and drama. And truthfully, in fact, lets them not speak that much at all. A ton of Geralt's dialogue is just him grunting. You should probably definitely watch this with subtitles. The show has a ton of unique nouns, so it's extremely helpful in placing everything properly. Now, segueing off of nouns, let's talk about world building. The show is set in a fantasy world where dragons, elves, dwarves, and magic exist, but it's all presented under a coat of grim and maturity and realism. This is not a plain good versus evil, light versus dark story. Every character is completely drenched in gray. Personally, I vastly prefer settings that take this approach. It's why I've always leaned more towards Vampire the Masquerade and World of Darkness games as opposed to Dungeons and Dragons. A sort of static, very clean approach to good and evil, I think, removes so much nuance to characters and their lives. From a mother trying to kill her daughter's lover right in front of her, to Geralt earning the nickname Butcher of Blaviken by slaughtering a group of mercenaries in the town square. Even if you don't agree with the character's decisions, you can at least empathize and understand why they've chosen to behave or take this course of action. Now, one issue I did have with the show is the representation of elves. The first time we're introduced to them, they're painted as like the original rulers of the land, with an event called the Conjunction of Spheres. Think like realms bleeding into one another, leading to humans now existing on this world. Originally, it was just the elves. The elves would go on to teach them magic, and the humans eventually would use that magic to overthrow and subjugate the elves. So the first band of elves we see in the show is quite literally an outcast group that's been hiding from humans, as if the humans find them, they would attack them and kill them on sight. But within like 2 more episodes, I think, Geralt is racing through town and to find a healer to save Jaskier, and the guard casually explains that they have an elf healer. And sure enough, he's just chilling in the town with his own store, no issues. This was just confusing to me. Maybe I missed something, and I have to imagine the books explain in more detail to the relationships between elves and humans. Maybe like different kingdoms have different rules, the geography plays some part in that, or these smaller towns just accept them as they all need to work together to survive on the frontier or something. But strictly speaking, through the show, this was weird and incongruous. But I do need to praise the excellent cinematography and lighting. My 2 favorite shots are the one where Geralt is on the stairway and the Doppler in front of the 3 mirrors. So much ambiance gets set without any words at all. The color palette, the off-axis camera. It's rare that I'll remember specific shots, so I wanted to reference that. Now, I didn't particularly think the dragon looked that great, and maybe the monster they kill on the way up the trail, some humanoid looking monster, also didn't look that good. I'm not saying it looked like Xena or Hercules level stuff, and honestly, aside from those two things, the rest of the special effects were great. From the sword fighting and the dismemberment to the magic that gets cast. It looks real and believable, like what it should be in that world. Now, the last thing I want to touch on, my favorite, is audio. I mentioned earlier that the Bard Yaskir lays down an absolute club banger. If I was Armin, 100% this is going on a state of trance. But not only the Toss a Coin to Your Witcher song, the show bookends each episode with a motif that's representative of the theme at the start and an appropriate song, mostly original pieces, to close the episode out. And they all feel very grounded and folky, native and earthy, further accentuated by the fact that I'm a native English speaker, and in a couple of the songs, the delivery and cadence of the lyrics wasn't quite where I thought it should be. This further helped sell the fact that, hey, you don't belong here. It's unease. It's like I was walking into another country, listening to another language's music. They have their own worldviews and customs. It's different, and I really appreciated that. Obviously, other people are going to get a different experience from that, but hey, that was mine. Now, I made a joke in one of my reactions about just how easily this show could have been a sci-fi original series, Monster of the Week style, with full-on camp and goofiness, white-haired monster hunter man, and how I was so appreciative of the show really respecting the source material, and it clearly shows in the finished product. I wasn't the biggest Witcher fan. I didn't clamor day one to watch all the episodes. I didn't even play the third game. I haven't read any of the books. It was my mom that turned me onto the show in the first place, and she most definitely has never heard of The Witcher beforehand. But like any good piece of media or entertainment, that feeling of wanting more has been stuck in my head ever since the show ended. I've spent time looking through the official timeline and watching the episodes again. I'm excited to dive into The Witcher 3. I want to read the books. I have to know what's going on with the homie Vilgefortz. This show made me into a bigger fan, and I loved every second of it. I'm not sure what else to say. Just 2 thumbs up from me.
You're still here? It's over.